So we'd certainly encourage you to do that if you're able, and we really appreciate that. So thank you again, Alan. And we're going to move on to our final speaker of the meeting, Michael Oretade, president of BLM860, has been involved in actions around the state to change the lives of individuals born of the African diaspora. Since George Floyd's murder in 2020, Oretade has worked to galvanize communities to combat the inequities in the system surrounding us. Oretade and BLM860 have supported community activist endeavors throughout Connecticut and continue to promote equity in education, the criminal justice system, immigration, housing, and the preservation of the environment through direct action and advocating for effective policy changes. And this is another individual that I've had the pleasure of seeing speak at an action, and he is an incredible speaker. So I'm sure this will be wonderful, and I hope I pronounced your name properly. So I'll pass it over to Michael.
You did, Justin. So thank you for even taking the time out to make sure that you said it right. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Just to, open up, I do want to say thank you for having me as a person who is very against the duopoly that is controlling our current political structure. I'm happy to support some progressive politicians and future perspective politicians here, and hopefully garner some of your support and maybe convene with you and see how we can support each other in our future endeavors. I don't really have a beautiful presentation like some of the other individuals have. I'm just kind of here as myself. I'm going to speak from the heart. I do have some legislation that I do want you guys to look at. But before I even send that, I just want to open up and just piggyback off of what Dustin was saying about some of our efforts that we've done through Black Lives Matter 860. So when George Floyd was murdered last year, I kind of had like a calling in my soul, like a lot of other activists that are, a part of this community. I just told my mom, hey, look, I got to get out there. Since the death of Trayvon Martin, I've been slowly becoming more and more aware of what's been going on around me. As a child, I looked at the systems around me, and from just learning from the elders, it was just like, this is just what it is. This is never going to change, and this is what we have to deal with. Being Black, we got to deal with the crime, we got to deal with the poor neighborhoods, the litter, all this stuff. That's just kind of the way I live my life. And then I got to a point where I started just noticing the disparities, noticing how much I was sweating anytime a police officer would pull up behind me, even though I'm just a regular guy. I'm not out here causing trouble. I've never partaken in selling drugs or anything dangerous, but I was always afraid, and I knew that this wasn't right. So I've reached a point now in the advent of George Floyd's murder where I needed to go out and I need to use my voice and talk about the things that I personally have experienced. And it's the reason why we fought for the police accountability bill last year. A bunch of activists came together, and we actually got a petition signed over 10,000 times in support of getting the police accountability bill passed with specific language that actually ended up making it onto the bill. Interestingly enough, of course, it wasn't just our organization that got these things on and passed. But interestingly enough, the bill, of course, has been weakened significantly since then, as well as just not even backed up. So since then, we've continued to advocate. We supported other towns from Glastonbury to Milford. We go out anywhere we can to support advocacy efforts all over the state of Connecticut. We've gone everywhere. Whether a kid has been discriminated in a classroom, we support. Whether someone has been lost in the community to gun violence from the police themselves, we support, because we know that the system isn't this. It should not be viewed as this black and whiteness that it is. And that a lot of the disparities that we suffer from in our communities are the result of white supremacy. So I'm going to go ahead and send you guys something real quick after that little backgrounder to kind of just talk about another organization that I am a part of the board of. And I'll give you a little bit of background on this organization as we go. But I'm also a board member of the statewide coalition consisting of over 33 activist organizations all around Connecticut. I was approached by Chris Murphy, our senator, who was asking to see if I would assist him with building this coalition. And what we did is we took it and we grabbed as many activists as we could. And we formed a board that is currently focused on getting racism declared as a public health crisis. And this was last year. Since then, we have rallied and supported, spoken to senators and state representatives, local politicians, and advocated for the declaration. Of course, we advocated for specific pillars because when we saw specific legislation that was originally introduced, didn't have a lot of the language that we thought was necessary because just like I said about the police accountability bill, bills like this tend to be passed as just here you go. You know, there's no meat, there's no actual follow up, there's no intent to actually do anything with the bills. They're just to, you know, hopefully quiet people down. But a bill like this, and even with the new language that has just been amended, has made it through the Appropriations Committee and has made it through the Senate. So now it's going to the House, and we're at the point where if this is passed, this could be the very crucial first step in which we are, eliminating a lot of the racial disparities, specifically around lines 3 and 6. The declaration is blatant and it's there. It's declaring racism as a public health crisis. A lot of the pillars that we as Connecticut Equity Now put forth have actually made it onto this bill, which is incredible. You know, we sat down with Senator Haskell, Winfield. We've made calls everywhere we could. Personally, I've sat down with Haskell, and he was also very bothered. And personally, I was very bothered. Initially, this bill had no definitions for racism, structural racism, or even like implicit bias, and what could possibly have to do, what that could possibly have to do with our decisions that we make. And it bothered both of us, and he advocated to get that added on there as well. Because me, in my opinion, if it doesn't include the definitions, then they're not going to know what they're going after. You know, they're not going to know what to approach. So structural racism, all these things are outlined here. Lines 110 to 124. They actually advise that, you know, there's going to be a strategic plan to eliminate health disparities and inequities. And, you know, I'm actually just a very big supporter of this actual piece of legislation. There is another piece of legislation out there, too, that if you guys want to look into it as well, at 6662. But as of right now, I believe that SB1 does have stronger language, and definitely want you guys, if you guys could get in there and support this piece of legislation. Read it, in full. Make sure that if you guys have any amendments or any suggestions on the language, that you email your legislator, contact your legislator. And I think that's what we all need to be doing right now in order to actually get this type of legislation passed. Because, the House is probably going to tear it apart when it gets there. And I think that honestly, right now, the way that it's written, the focus in all the specific areas, specifically, and I'm going to go back to something that we started discussing before, this meeting actually started. Lines 599 to 603. I believe those lines, they haven't even, been amended or anything in its current form. They allow us to establish the STARS program, or a program similar to that, meaning that we would actually have a piece of organization that could help with policing, and rather than the violent forms of policing that we have someone who is more, we have a unit or dispatch that could possibly be more holistic in its approach towards the situations that we have in our over-policed neighborhoods. Just the other day, I was in Waterbury, and it's a completely different situation. I'm not going to say Hartford is good and by any means, because we are still over-policed in Hartford. But everywhere I turned in Waterbury, police were everywhere. They don't have like a Black Lives Matter 860 or Black Lives Matter chapter, from what I know of, that's like actively out here approaching the police, sitting down with the police chief, doing these things to kind of push back against the over-policing. I pull up to a get-together with my friends, and 3 police cars are out front telling them they need to turn their music down. Music wasn't even that loud. And this is just how they do things in our neighborhoods. Even if we're not bothering anyone, they are over-policing us. I was just driving down Albany Avenue the other day, and me and my secretary at Black Lives Matter 860, we see 6 police cars on the corner of, I want to say, maybe Coventry Street in Hartford. And we're like, what's going on? So part of something that me and other individuals that are part of my organization do is we pull up on the police. We police the police because we need to understand why they're there and what they're doing. So we approach, we were walking towards the situation, and we stop and talk to some individuals, and we're told that someone got arrested for jaywalking. So we hear that, me and my secretary go, that's broken window policing. And if you know what broken window policing is just basically over policing individuals for simple things that, that usually don't bother me, non-violent crimes, things of that nature, broken headlights, things like that. So we continue walking, and we ask someone else, like, hey, do you know any more information about what's happening here? And they say, oh, so they arrested someone who was jaywalking, and then they let him out and arrested a guy who was cursing at the police. So off rip, me and my secretary, we're pissed now because we curse at the police every day. So I go over it immediately. The police start murmuring to each other because even though me and Chief Thody do not have a great relationship, we have had counsel. We've sat down to talk about over policing, and we have built enough rapport so that if something happens in our community, I can ask him for the footage directly. So a lot of individuals on the police force are aware of this. I immediately went over and I said, hey, look, what's going on here? A young rookie cop started going off on me. So I said, okay, I'm done talking to you. I'll talk to a guy that I know. Seen another guy, he said, blah, blah, blah. The First Amendment can only go so far. And I just looked at him. I was like, you what? So they let him out the car and we just walked away. I say all this to say that this is something that if an individual like myself who is an advocate in the community, who sits down, builds rapport with the mayor, the police chiefs, these people who are in power, isn't in your neighborhood, isn't there to stop the police and say, hey, what's going on here? And then they talk it out and then they let the person out. That man could have been arrested, could have been charged with something like breach of peace, which is something that they always do. Instead of doing that, we could have a mental health dispatch that could come out and ascertain issues that are nonviolent crimes, or does not even address issues like jaywalking in the first place. And these are the racial disparities that we're seeing in our neighborhoods: the constant over-policing, the lack of equitable health care, the poor funding in our educational system. And I know that there are individuals that can state that, our educational our schools in Hartford are greatly funded. There's a lot of funding going to our schools. But if you look at our schools in Hartford, they're beautiful, but that's it. They're beautiful schools. But what about the curriculum? Where is programs like SFA, what I grew up with, Success for All, that prioritized children being able to read and being at reading level or above reading level? These programs no longer exist. And I have probed, politicians, I've probed individuals in the community, and they said that it wasn't a budgetary problem. They just didn't want the program anymore. And these are the problems that our education system are facing. I meet 10-year-olds that can't read in our education system. And these are problems that we're seeing in our community. I'm a teacher. I teach out in Manchester, but I'm moving back to Hartford to teach in Hartford. I've recently applied for Community First School, and it is there that I plan to do all my work and due diligence to make sure that children are at reading level, and advocating from inside to make sure that our education gets sufficiently funded. I also want to pull up another part of this bill, the lines 236 to 240, because this area, for me, it tackles the environmental racism. So, in my opinion, and I might get a little bit of pushback from some individuals here, but that's okay. I just want to put out my perspective and the thing that I believe is a possible solution to this, as well as, and I'll even address our food waste problems that we're having in Connecticut as well. But I believe in a process called plasma gasification, I am going to send it in, and I know I already see the faces. I already see them. They're like, "Oh man, you had me up until here." Hold on, I'm gonna send you guys this process, and you guys give me pushback. Definitely want you guys to at least read up on this. This process, as of right now, zero waste, in my opinion, is not going to be feasible for quite some time. We need to develop some solutions. We need to develop the right technology. We need to keep pushing forward as a society in order to approach a system in which zero waste is absolutely 100% possible. As of right now, we produce so much waste here in Connecticut alone. I believe about 4 billion tons in a year of waste. We're in the process because our incinerator in Hartford is no longer a viable solution for our trash. They've put a blanket over our trash heap that we had, and said that they wouldn't touch it, blah, blah, blah. So just to shed some light on what this process does is it's not like incineration, where incineration puts a bunch of crap into our air and it hurts our environment. This particular process burns it, condenses it, and turns it into a slag, which is an aggregate, inert aggregate. And it turns that slag into energy through the process of plasma gasification. And what this does is it gets rid of a lot of the waste that was not being recycled. As you guys know or may not know, recycling is a lie. It's something to make people feel comfortable with their waste. We're not recycling at a rate in which is actually helping the environment. We got bottles and I'll just show you one. We have cheaper bottles. This one actually can be recycled, but we have cheaper bottles that don't even have the 5-cent payback. There's no way to actually recycle that. They're just going to throw it in the trash, and a lot of our trash ends up in the sea, killing our wildlife. We have a reef next to Mexico right now that is all garbage, killing dolphins, sharks, everything. In my opinion, I believe that we should deal with this trash at the source, especially here in Connecticut. When we do this plasma gasification process, it turns it into this aggregate. I'm hearing that our governor wants to reinstall tolls. This right here completely eliminates half of the transportation budget. You want to know why? Because the aggregate is inert. Now we can use this inert aggregate for our roads. That cuts our transportation costs completely because we produce 4 billion tons. If we continue to go on this route where we're shipping our trash to other states, we're only causing more damage to our environment. If we continue building these trash heaps, we're only causing more damage to our environment. My solution is to melt it down, use that energy to actually power our communities. Instead of, I don't know where the incinerator energy went. Does anybody here know where the incinerator energy is going? Does anybody know where the solar panels that are on top of our trash heap in Hartford now, where is that energy going? I don't know. And I've tried to find information on it, and I still cannot find that information. With this process, I'm hoping to put forth the usage of this actual energy that we're going to be creating is going to go back to the communities, because our energy costs here in Connecticut is top 3 highest energy costs in America. In Connecticut, we're one of the smallest states of the United States of America. How the hell are we top 3 in energy costs? That's ridiculous. So this process right here, I'm hoping to utilize this process in order to eliminate that and put some energy back into our urban environments, because we're producing the most trash. So we should absolutely have the most control, and we should know exactly where that energy is going. And I call that socialized energy, because if the individuals in the city get access to this energy, their energy bills are cut, maybe even eliminated. That's what I want. I want an elimination of energy costs. And also, this deals with our Eversource problem. Eversource is not a good company for us to continue to support. This puts the state in control of our energy, and that's what we need. And yeah, I hear people are saying, this might cut jobs and blah, blah, blah. No, because now we have we have something that we can support ourselves and create jobs. And if we do well enough with the aggregate for transport, we can export aggregate to other states and possibly even work out and broker deals with other states to take their trash if this process is efficient enough. Now we have energy coming in from all over the tri-state area, and we can take care of it, and it won't pollute the environment, and will provide energy, which opens the doors to so many other possibilities. And this is going to, and people might say, well, this is far. How does this connect? This connects directly to my people. If we get cheaper energy, that's more money in our pockets. That's more financial stability in my neighborhood. So that's one reason why I'm definitely fighting for this. And just, I'm not going to do a long presentation. I just wanted to touch base on this process in terms of environmental racism. And I wanted to talk about the bill that I just brought to you today. I didn't write anything for today. I just wanted to speak from the heart and let y'all know what I'm fighting for. If you guys want to support Black Lives Matter, no problem, Douglas. If you guys want to support Black Lives Matter 860, please just send me your information. What I do is I add you to my network. When there's an event going on, I will just blast it to you, because we're big on just continue to do. We're doing grassroots. Like, we don't have like a bunch of like structure. Like if a kid is being hurt in a school, I'm just going to send you everything. I'm going to say, look, this mother is crying for help, and I need you there, because you're the only ones that can help me. The community needs to stand up for this kid. That's what we do at Black Lives Matter 860. Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. That was great. I think you touched on a lot of different things that were important, and that last bit you were talking about is something I actually was not familiar with at all, and I'm very interested in learning more about it. So as usual, if anyone has specific questions and you want to type them into the box or raise your hand, go ahead and do that. We're happy to do that. And while you do that, I actually had a question for you. Someone who seems to be involved not only in activism, but also trying to pursue politics. What you kind of think the relationship between the two is? Because I think with the Green Party, that's something that can distinguish us from the Democratic Party, which seems to be so focused on the politics and the symbolic gestures and things of that sort. I think the direction for us to go with the Green Party is to become like the political arm for the activists and for the community. So I kind of wanted to know what your thought was on what the relationship would be between a true progressive party and the activist community.
So I believe that as activists, we need to be running for office. I'm personally, I have to talk to, I believe, Mary Sanders about this, and I got to talk to a bunch of other members of the Green Party. But I do want to seek, I know I can't do it right now, but I do want to seek the Green Party's endorsement because I want to get Fonfara out of office. He needs to be out of office. He's not a good man. Not forget politicians. He's not a good man. And I'm going to say that because I don't hold my tongue. I believe that as politicians, as future politicians, we need to be positioning. This political spectrum towards progressivism. Look at what's happening with Biden right now. He's a piece of shit, obviously, but he's going up against people who used to be claiming that they're progressive. Of course, they're very liberal. He's going up against their core beliefs, and as well as the Republicans. He's going against two people against the removal of the filibuster. You know what I mean? Two parties. He wants to. He is fighting for its removal, but he's going to get so much opposition right now, and that's because there's not enough progressive politicians in office. So we as activists need. I know a lot of activists don't believe in this centralized government and blah blah blah. But how the hell are we going to change it if we're on the outside? There's no way we can. We have literally seen throughout history where political spectrums have completely changed. The Republicans used to be the Democrats, the Democrats used to be the Republicans. And that's because enough people infiltrated, did what he had to do, and changed it. Now, the Green Party is in a unique position. We could honestly take over. We could create that third party network all over the country and just build this platform that's progressive and real, that's focused on issues, aware that the government has unlimited money. The deficit myth is a myth, and actually fight for actual change. Defunding the military, funding our. One thing I'm definitely fighting for as a person that is fighting for education for all is universal early childhood education, socialized energy, because we can do it. We have the money to do it. We just lack the focus. So as an activist, I want to fight for people to be running for office. I think that as activists, we all need to be trying to get in office, whether that's local, state, or federal. And my goal is to run for Senate, and in 4 years, run for federal Senate, and then in 8 years, 4 or 8 years after that, run for president. And that's real. I always set out to do exactly what I'm talking about, you know? And I think that's what we need to be doing. Setting our goals, looking towards the future, looking at what's going to happen in 10 years. Because a lot of our politicians, they get in for their 2 years and they say, okay, cool, I'm going to do what I can for this short amount of time that I might be in office, and then I'm going to just chill. And then they sit in that seat for 20 years doing the same thing that they started doing 2 years into their seat.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think you're spot on there. Looking through the chat and I see some comments, but it doesn't look like we have any more. Oh, it's like Justin just raised his hand.
Oh yeah, just to speak in support of what you're saying, Michael. I think you're spot on. I'm really inspired to see you doing what you're doing and running for office. I agree. Is a and I can assure you, it is a really powerful thing to do. It gets people's attention. You get in the news, and potentially you get real power if you win. So that's really where it's at. The activist movement has to get into real power and hold seats to control what ultimately happens, what the policies are, and I'm really I'm behind you 100%. So thank you for what you're doing.
And that's not to say that activism, and thank you so much, Justin. And it's not to say that activism, isn't enough. You know what I mean? I don't want people to think that like I'm diminishing activism's effort, because I am an activist. You know what I mean? Like we can be outside and we can kick down the doors and we can yell, but we also need individuals that are like inside, like, yo, we need to let them in. We need to let them in so we can talk to them. Like Gary Winfield, I've gone out and I protested in front of the Capitol for months on it. And Gary Winfield actually sat in there and he said, yo, like, why are we not going out to talk to them and hear the people's voice to them? You know what I mean? And he's come out and said, thank you guys. As a politician, a progressive politician who's got clout now because of all the work he's done, you should see his bill list written from like 2020 in comparison to somebody like Frank Carter, who really just co-signs a lot of other bills, but he hasn't put forth towards any progressive policy himself. It's a shame,
No, agree. Gary does a great job, and and activism and electoral politics should work hand in hand. I think they're all part of a piece.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like I see any more questions in the chat there. Mike, I could say at least, speaking for myself, that I would, 100% support, you running as a Green and us endorsing you, and I think with, the fact that your policies are policies that are actually going to make change, I think with the Green Party, you can actually get support where you're not going to get that, faux liberal kind of pushback that you're being too extreme. I think, I think based on your policies, I think the Green Party could be a great home to support you for that. So, I definitely hope to have those conversations with you in the future and, keep working together on all the things we can.